From WLWT, this is Issues.
Hello, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller, and welcome to Issues. A national faith leader is calling for change in the wake of two mistrials in the death of Sam DuBose. You know, some folks thought dropping charges against DuBose shooter, Ray Tenzing, would impact the National Baptist Convention scheduled to come to Cincinnati in just a couple of weeks.
In an unusual move, the president of the National Baptist Convention visited the city, hosting the group's largest annual gathering weeks before that gathering is scheduled to start.
How is it and what is it that National Baptists ought to do in light of the cry of the community?
After shooting down speculation the upcoming convention might be canceled, Jerry Young said the organization he leads is committed to helping African Americans feel safer in the streets of Cincinnati.
Enough is enough. And I, for one, I've had enough of this foolishness.
Young and other faith leaders came together to show their support for the family of Sam DuBose, who was shot and killed by former UC police officer Ray Tenzing during this 2015 traffic stop. Tenzing faced two murder trials, but both ended in hung juries.
They will continue to keep hunting us down and killing us in the streets if we don't come together as one and become a people. We have to.
In addition to calls for unity, the interim president of the NAACP called on African Americans to embrace the ballot booth.
We are in a critical time. And emotional reactions is maybe necessary, but is insufficient. That's right. That's right. Elections have consequences. That's right.
Well, the National Baptist Convention is scheduled to come to Cincinnati September 4th through the 8th. We're going to take a break and talk a lot more about what's scheduled during that week, and we'll talk a little bit more about that session held at Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller. We are talking about the National Baptist Convention coming to Cincinnati September 4th through the 8th. And with me to talk a lot more about that is the senior pastor of Lincoln Heights Missionary Baptist Church, Dr. Elliot Cuff. He is also the dean of the Congress of Christian Education for the National Baptist Convention. And welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Curtis. I'm so glad to be with you and to be with your audience here on this very, very fine program. Thank you for having me.
I will ask you to just sort of give some background on the National Baptist Convention. It is, the largest organization of its kind. So talk a little bit about its history.
Well, the National Baptist Convention is having its 137th annual session when it comes to Cincinnati on September the 4th. And its formation is the result of the beginning of black congregations in the late 1800s realizing that there was a need for them to come together in some kind of way, not just for the sense of racial identity, but also to help each other make progress through missions, through evangelism, and through Christian education. And what emerged out of that was a common need to find their voice in America. And so the National Baptist Convention is one of the organizations that was formed. And of course, later on you had the NAACP and others. But it was a people of faith who found common ground with each other through their belief in God, through their belief in Jesus Christ. And they said, why should we, be separate? Let's come together for fellowship. Let's come together. And so the founders said, well, why don't we just organize this and do this on an annual basis? And that's how the National Baptist Convention was birthed.
And people should know, and correct me on this number, 7.5 million?
Yes. 7.5 million members of the National Baptist Convention USA Incorporated worldwide. Of course here in the United States, but then, you know, we also have members and affiliations around the world, in Africa, in the Bahamas. We're quite an amazing organization.
And I lay that foundation because so often people just don't know the background, or they don't know to what extent, you know, there are various organizations out there, and but this is a significant organization worldwide. And so when it comes to Cincinnati, last time it was here, 2008.
Yes.
Talk about the significance of coming to Cincinnati.
Well, when the convention was here in 2008, as you may recall, it was a very, very, very interesting summer. We had the annual session of the NAACP, which was held here. We also had the AME Church had its annual session here, and of course the Black Family Reunion was that summer. It was, if you will, sort of a black summer. There, of course, we had some racial unrest, and there was some, for lack of a better description, some rumbling in the community about where was the city of Cincinnati, and, you know, Mayor Mallory wanted to assure the community that, you know, our people were welcomed, the conventions were welcomed, and the city of Cincinnati just did an incredible job in hosting the National Baptist Convention, that the leadership of the convention said, well, why don't we come back? When can we come back to Cincinnati? Because when you've been treated well and you receive great hospitality, and the earliest that the convention could get back was 2017. And so they're coming again this year, and a lot has changed, not only in Cincinnati, but in our nation, and as well in our convention life. We're not the same convention. We have a new leader, Dr. Jerry Young.
Who we saw in that video.
Yes, who's from Jackson, Mississippi, and was reared in the convention. But yet he is a postmodern leader and a very, very astute pastor in the South, and who has traveled extensively, and he brings a wealth of new ideas and a renewed vision for our convention. We're still going to be doing the things, you know, as relates to Christian education and missions and evangelism. But Dr. Young is, as you could tell from 2 weeks ago when you showed the clip here to the audience, very socially conscious, very aware of what's happening today. And when you visit his church, you get that sense that he is in step with what's going on in America, and particularly what's happening in Black America.
Because it would be hard to come to Cincinnati, given what transpired in the Ray Tenzing trial, and not say anything about it. We're seeing similar cases all over the country, similar results.
Right.
And so, once again, this will become the epicenter for this very charged issue. And so it was important for him and others to say, let's make sure we do that.
Well, what initiated that was I spoke to Reverend Mark Bomar, who was the president of the Cincinnati Baptist Pastors Union, and he was quite concerned that the convention was coming, and there had not been any word from the convention, any message from the convention, any statement from the convention about, you know, where the convention stood as it related to the trial and to the death of the young man. And so I called Dr. Young, and he said, well, look, you know, he said, you know how I feel about these things. You know, I'm concerned about what's going on in Cincinnati, Chicago, Newark, you know, and other urban areas around the country, even in his own area. There has been unsettling violence, and particularly interaction with law enforcement. And so he said, well, let's see if there's a day when I can come to Cincinnati, and I like to have the leaders come together, you know, not just Reverend Bomar, but I like to have the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, the other clergy groups, some of the other faith-based organizations. Can you get them together? And it was just a week. I said, well, I'll do what I can. I'll put the word out, right, and that kind of thing. And it was a great response. It was a great response. And we were very fortunate to have the interim president of the NAACP National there, and also we had Dr. Amos Brown fly in from San Francisco, who was reared in Jackson, Mississippi during the Cauldron days of race and Jim Crow, and he spoke so eloquently that day about his journey, as well as how he viewed the interactions with law enforcement in our community from a historical perspective. It's very, very educational, his comments that day. And so I thought Dr. Young spoke to the moment, and he promised that when the convention is here in several weeks, that he will convene another meeting and try to help develop a strategy. I think the most important thing that Dr. Young conveyed that day is that just because the convention is not, sending out tweets and emails every 5 minutes, it doesn't mean that he's not aware in his office of what's going on around this country and of course what's going on here in Cincinnati.
Hold your thought. We're going to take a break and then come back, talk a little bit more about this, but also give some specifics about what's going to happen September 4th through the 8th.
Good.
All right.
Good.
We'll be back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Curtis Fuller. I'm here talking to Dr. Elliott Cuff. We're talking about the National Baptist Convention. 20,000 people expected?
Yes. And it will open on Monday night.
Labor Day.
Yes, with a concert, a musical, and the musical is dedicated to one of Cincinnati's great gospel composers and singers, Dr. Charles Fold, who's no longer with us. And we expect to have 300 or 400 voice choir at that time. And Dr. Young is very excited about that. I've been to some of the rehearsals and they are really dynamic. This choir is comprised of singers from different churches all over the state. And we're just excited. Then on Tuesday evening, we will have what's called the Presidential Educational Banquet. This is when members of the convention come and sit down for moments of fellowship and meal, and our speaker will be Dr. Otis Moss Jr., who was a distinguished pastor here in Cincinnati, and then of course he went on to Cleveland. Just an icon in civil rights, a well respected man in America, and quite an able speaker, as you know, quite an able speaker. So we're very happy that Dr. Moss could take out of his schedule to come and
that'll
be part
be
of
at
that.
the Duke.
And Duke Energy Center. All these events will be held at the Duke Energy Center. The convention is a time when all the auxiliary heads, presidents, give their report. And in our convention, when we say report, we mean also give an address, give a speech, if you will. And so on Thursday at 9 a.m., we will hear from Dr. Young, our president. And during the week, at different times, different presidents of different auxiliaries, from ushers to women to young adult to laymen, will be giving their reports and giving their addresses. And this is the time when we receive our marching orders from our president, and it's just not attended by Baptists. We have guests from other denominations, as well as just people who are curious, enjoy good preaching, good music. One of the highlights is the 10 o'clock service each night, which we call the late night service, which features some of the top evangelistic preachers of our convention. So it's a great time. I want to invite your audience and you, of course, Curtis, we've already invited you. We know you'll be there.
I will be
there. you know, we like for everybody in Cincinnati to come and see what we're all about. And this is a time, I feel, in our nation where we can use some more inspiration, you know, some more enthusiasm, some more, if you will, some more, you know, community coming together, regardless of race, regardless of background, regardless of religion. We just need to hear the great gospel music, the great gospel preaching, to enjoy the fellowship, to walk through the concessions, to see all the wonderful things that the National Baptist Convention family is doing and plans to do in the future.
I know there will be a lot of workshops. People will want to know, is there a cost to this? How do you can you register?
Anyone can go online at nationalbaptistusainc.org and register for the convention. The public is invited. Registration is nominal. And, you know, you can go to any of these classes and things. And of course, you know, being a Baptist organization, when we are in these sessions, we do take up offerings. We do take up offerings, love offerings. And so, but sure, we're inviting all of Cincinnati to come and to be with us, to see what we have to offer. There'll be a number of classes, classes on technology in the church, which is very needed today, as well as, you know, there'll be instruction on, you know, how to put your organizations, how to strengthen your auxiliaries, how to strengthen your ministries. As well, we're going to be hearing reports from missionaries. Because we do have missionaries who are on the field in a number of countries around the world, particularly in the continent of Africa. And they'll be there giving their reports and showing videos and taking questions. While we're here in Cincinnati, we will have a home mission project, we'll have an evangelism project, as well as we're going to have a food giveaway project. And the Bethlehem Missionary Baptist Church, where Pastor Floyd Walker is the pastor, is one of the key locations where we'll be doing a lot of this work from, as well as the Southern Baptist Church, where Dr. Robert Baines is the pastor. And so we're just really excited. On Sunday morning, Pastor Darrell Woods and the Revelation Baptist Church are going to host all of the women of the different auxiliaries.
Will actually be going into the community as well.
Going into the community. You know, this is not a convention just going to come and be downtown and, you know, go shopping and go to the restaurants. We're interested in lifting the community of Cincinnati, and I believe we will do that. And I think it's a critical time, not only here in our community, but in America, with all the noise and all the dissension that's going on in our country. We just need to feel the love now, and like I said, be inspired and be around some joy and happiness. And if you come to the National Baptist Convention, that is exactly what you're going to see in our annual session.
Sounds great. I'm going to take a break, and then we're going to come back. I want to show you a couple of videos, things happening, and talk about noise, some of the noise happening in the community. Back in a moment. Welcome back, everyone. You know, the protests in Charlottesville centered around the removal of a Confederate monument. Now, a Confederate memorial debate is heating up right here in the Buckeye State. The focus is on Franklin, Ohio, and a memorial to General Robert E. Lee.
We're coming to bring awareness to the fact that white supremacy is alive and well in Ohio.
It ain't about color. I'm no racist. We're not haters here. The haters are the ones driving by cussing us out.
I'm standing up for nonviolence and nonviolent action.
The question I have is that when you all get done destroying our beautiful country, our landmarks, what are you going to do next?
In fact, the question of what's next for a Confederate memorial to Robert E. Lee is what's fueling this war of words. These folks are upset, they say, because the city of Franklin removed Lee's plaque last week, and they want it put back.
We are here to preserve history and heritage.
They came in the middle of the night and took it. That's wrong. I think it needs to come back.
These folks gathered in Centerville, but they wanted their voice heard too. They say the symbolism of a plaque to Robert E. Lee should not be embraced.
These symbols are used by the alt-right and by the Klan and by organizations like American Vanguard that are mobilizing racist, white supremacist extremism that I'm calling terrorism.
But the more you listen, the more you know. This debate runs much deeper than monuments.
What's next? The Lincoln Memorial? The Grant's tomb? What is it? You know, where's it going to end?
That's why we're here, to show people that we won't be intimidated.
You know, when you watch this is close at home. We're talking Franklin and this discussion about these monuments. I guess everyone's reflected on this. These monuments have been around. What's your take on how this is dividing people?
Well, unfortunately, Curtis, you know, we have stirred up a lot of racial animosity in our nation. I think it goes all the way back through the presidential campaign. And these statues and monuments, which have been with us for a considerable amount of time, are symbols to many people of days gone by that they really just want to stay as days gone by. I think it's very, very important that we educate each other about our history, but also I think we have to be very, very careful that we not pretend that we didn't live certain things in this country. And I'm sure that there are things in our community and in other communities that some people may not be comfortable with, but I think because America is such a diverse nation and we have such a vast and broad cultural tapestry that we ought to be able to place monuments and things that are not offensive in our museums, in places in our parks, so that our children and their children will know from where we come. We just didn't come from 5 or 10 minutes ago. We're not just here from the last presidential election. We have a long, long history in this country, and there were things, as you and I know, that happened during even the Revolutionary War that today would probably offend people if we put those symbols and statues up and those kinds of things. But in America, we believe in education. We believe in freedom. We believe in liberty. And I think that we have to begin to talk to each other, and our leaders need to do more of that instead of shouting. And there are symbols in our nation as well as in our world that are offensive to groups, and we should be sensitive about it.
Dr. King said we have some difficult days ahead.
Yes, Lord.
we are now in those difficult days. Yes. It is pretty amazing. Yes. But thank you for being here. A reminder that the National Baptist Convention coming September 4th through the 8th, all down at the Duke Energy Convention Center. Go to National Baptist USAInc.org for more information. Well, that does it for the program today. Have a nice day, everyone.